Thank you everyone for your patience, and now handing over to the ladies, Rashmi.
Thank you, RK, and wishing everyone in India a fantastic Independence Day. We have people joining in from across borders too, so wishing everyone a very good Saturday evening. Today's session is very important to us organizers as we have come together to launch iLead, a structured leadership mentoring development program under the banner of Power, Progress and Change. We at Beyond Diversity have had almost a decade experience in building women leadership, and we are truly excited in launching this program today, which is global, virtual, and diverse at its core. It's truly a coming together of a bunch of people who believe in creating a momentum in acceleration of women leadership. I would like to thank our partners, HR Shapers, Proventus HR, Lean in India, and She Engine for this. The benefits of investing in growth and development of women are immense. Our job together is now to create the momentum to scale them up at a global community level. So I would now like to stop here and introduce the lady of the moment and a keynote today, who has mentored, guided, and supported us in thinking big and being unapologetic about being a woman. She's a board advisor and a dial-in mentor for any kind of advice or decision. She wears a couple of hats. First, of course, as president of Jagran Limited, with publications like Dainik Jagran and Midday, along with India's first FM radio station, Radio City. She's also an independent director in Mindtree, Midday Infomedia, and Music Broadcast Limited. She has been ranked as the top 30 most powerful women in business as per Business Today in 2016, 2018, and 2019. She was featured in Fortune India's most powerful women in business list 2018 and 2019, and I'm sure this year too. Apart from this, she has taken out time in writing 2 bestsellers, Lady, You Are Not a Man, and more recently, Lady, You Are the Boss, which also is a webinar title, and we have very shamelessly taken it out of her book. She has been gracious enough to agree to it and also agreed to take out time from her busy schedule in speaking to all of us today. So welcome, Apurva. Truly honored to having you here. Over to you.
Thank you, Rashmi. And it's a pleasure to be here. And I congratulate all of you on this massive global platform that you have been able to create with your partners.
Thank you so much.
Without much ado, let me start my conversation with the sisterhood who is gathered here today. As we all know, women have been fighting for equality for the last 120 years. From 1903, when the suffragette movement first started, where women asked for the right to vote. But it was just not a right to vote. More importantly, what they were fighting was for their voices to be heard and for their opinions to matter. 120 years later, we are still fighting the same battle. A battle for our opinions to matter in civic society, in social society, in corporates, as entrepreneurs, as fundraisers, as managers, and as leaders. It is an unfortunate reality that in 2020, despite the fact that we are 50% of the population, there are just 15% women at middle management level and just around 5% women at senior leadership roles. Less than 3% of funding goes to women-led entrepreneurships. And there are very, very, very few women in political circles, as leaders in educational institutes, as directors in boards, as chancellors in universities, and as VC partners. It is said that it will take 108 more years, 108 more years for there to be genuine gender parity, for women to earn as much as men, for there to be equal representation of women in the economic business of life. This pace of change, ladies and gentlemen, is unacceptable. And you and I, and forums such as these, need to quicken the pace of change, because it is a fact that if there is equal representation of women at leadership levels, countries will do better, the world will do better, organizations' profits will do better, families will have better and healthier lifestyles. So what can you and I do to quicken the pace of change? As the famous American poet Audre Lorde said, the master's tools will not dismantle the master's house. So we have to own up new tools of change. We have to create our own way of bringing about this change. And there are three things that I would like you to focus on, think about, reflect on, because only through reflection will this change come. As all good guides tell you, there are three things you need to do to bring about some change. Stop a particular behavior, start a new behavior, and continue some behavior that is working. So let me take you through what you should stop, what you should start, and what you should continue. So first and foremost, I urge all the women who are in this webinar and the women that you interact with as women leaders and managers, the lesson that you must teach them, the behavior that they must stop, is this behavior of accepting to be stereotyped. It is a fact that the world consciously or unconsciously, consciously or subconsciously, ends up creating biases and ends up creating stereotypes with which they make sense of the humongous amount of information that is available to each individual. It is said that 11 million pieces of information that a person deals with on a daily basis, 16,000 thoughts, spoken thoughts that go through a particular brain in a day. How do we make sense of that information? We make sense of that information by creating stereotypes. And it is a reality, unfortunate, but a reality, that the world continues to stereotype women. A famous study done by a Harvard professor, Professor Cantor, created 4 stereotypes around which women are normally boxed in. And she said that the world typically boxes in women as either the mother, the pet, the seductress, or the Iron Maiden. While the world will continue to do this with us, what we need to do is not allow ourselves to be boxed into any one of these labels. The sad reality is, and if you reflect on this, you will realize that this happens to you, it has happened to me, it has happened to every woman, that in our attempt to fight against these stereotypes, we allow ourselves to get boxed into some other label. So I remember this happened to me when I got onto one of my first boards, and when I entered the board, and I was very thrilled with being part of such a marquee board. All the other members, who were obviously male, turned around and told me that, we are very happy to have you on the board, Ms. Purohit. And by the way, you have increased the glamour quotient of the board. Naturally, I was most horrified. I didn't get onto the board to be seen as a glamour quotient, right? And I didn't want to be seen as that. To counter that, I immediately started behaving like the mother of the board. So in my entire behavior with people who were far older to me, in my entire demeanor, in the way I talked in the board, I started behaving like the mother. And that starring role, unfortunately, stayed with me throughout my entire experience in that particular board. Much later, I looked back and asked myself, why did I allow myself to do this? I know I didn't want to be seen as the glamour quotient, but neither did I want to be seen or labeled as the mother of the board. But unfortunately, this is what happens to us all the time. Either the world is labeling us, or we ourselves label ourselves with some particular limiting box. I'm not good at finance. I can only do HR. I don't understand maths. I'm not a good driver. I'm good in collaboration, but I'm not necessarily good in taking tough choices. Haven't you said that often to yourself? Haven't you heard your inner voice tell you that maybe I'm not good at this? Maybe, that next promotion is not for me because, the others understand P&L. I don't understand P&L. Why do we allow ourselves to get limited like that? Why are we labeling? Why are we boxing ourselves with these limiting visions of us? That is the first message to all of you. And that is the first message that I would like you to change, the first behavior I would like you to stop. So what would I like you to start? Most of us have grown up, have been brought up in patriarchal environments. And in the patriarchal society that we exist in, men are groomed to come from a sense of entitlement. The earth has been made for men. Women, in that sense, have been groomed, have been socialized, have been brought up to be either the weaker member, the more invisible member, and in many cases, in many societies and many countries, the unwanted part of a family. In a malignant kind of patriarchal society, we are talking about the unwanted female fetus, the unwanted girl child. In a more benign patriarchal society, women tend to be more invisible. And you will realize that whether it is as the only woman in a room, in a boardroom, or as an older woman in a teller, standing in front of the bank teller, in the researches that are consistently being done, whether it's medical research, whether it is how the car design should be, whether it is how large the seat belt should be, or the size of a smartphone. Everything is designed around researching what men want, what the males need, and women have largely been treated as invisible. In this kind of environment, it is a fact that women always will be far more tentative than they need to be, far more apologetic about being in a room, and far more silent and far more quiet. They come from a position of looking at what their weaknesses are, whereas men come from a position of what their strength is. Any organization, if there is a new role, and men and women who are equally capable are asked to pick that role, most of the men think that they are ready for that role, whereas only around 50% of the women believe they are ready for the next role, despite the fact that they have the same talent, the same competency, and the same skill set. and the same feedback being given to them by the organization, you are good enough. However, because of the socialization that has happened so far of women being treated as the invisible sex, women don't have that confidence. And in fact, if you saw the video that was presented at the beginning of this talk, we did see that nearly 56% of the women believe that they will never reach the top. And that behavior you should stop. You should start accepting that you have innate strengths in you. You should celebrate your strengths, celebrate your successes, celebrate the good that you have done. Be vocal about your successes and not concentrate on your weakness. As a kid, I remember going for a wedding where I had a sty in my eye. And throughout that entire wedding, I must have been 13, 14, I kept on thinking, my God, that sty is so large. Everybody can see that sty. My God, it's hiding my face. Ultimately, it was just a sty. Unfortunately, for women, we keep seeing that sty as larger than the beautiful eyes that we have. And repeatedly, this is a behavior I see women continue and perpetuate all the time, whether it is after a presentation that they have completed, whether it is after a particular job that they have done, whether it is in putting the hand out for the next role or promotion. They concentrate, they talk about their weaknesses and not their strengths. At interviews, at the end of their appraisal sessions, women spend a lot of time discussing and agitating about their weaknesses and not their strengths. And that is the one thing that we need to get out of. We have as many strengths, we are as talented, we are as skilled as the male colleagues around us. Finally, the third behavior that I would urge each one of you to continue, because that's a critical strength that women have. And that is the strength that women have of being more empathetic, more collaborative, willing to listen to other opinions, willing to form consensus, and in an empathetic manner, take decisions which are good for the larger universe, whether it is a team, whether it is an organization, or whether it is a country. Again, sadly, the skills that women specifically have, the skills of consensus, the skills of collaboration, the skills of willingness to listen to other opinions, have been treated as soft skills. As a leader, you need to be tough. As a leader, you need to take a decision. As a leader, you don't need to play nice, is something that has been taught to us. And therefore, to a large extent, we have looked down upon this unique skill that we have of being collaborative and empathetic. However, as you would have seen in this scenario, as you would have seen with what has happened during this pandemic, the countries that have done well, the businesses that have done well, the teams that have done well are the teams where the leaders have been either women or leaders where they have been more collaborative and empathetic than the male muscularity that some other leaders have shown. Whether it is political leaders or whether it is organizational leaders, the willingness to listen to opinions, the willingness to draw conclusions from a larger expert base, and empathetically being able to communicate the next steps have been a female trait. And those are the traits that the world needs. Those are the traits that will help the world deal with an increasingly uncertain and complicated environment. The world needs women leaders, and it is now up to you, up to me, up to forums such as iLeap to create more women leaders. The thought that I'm leaving with you is, as Rumi said, are you a drop in an ocean or an ocean in a drop? You, as a woman, have the entire universe inside you. I urge each one of you to let that universe blossom so that the world doesn't think that the default gender of leadership can only be male. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Apurva. I mean, and always pleasure listening to you. And of course, starting to celebrating my strengths, stopping in accepting being stereotyped, and continuing being nurturer and empathetic and collaborative as a woman. I mean, you've said it all. But tell me, Apurva, I mean, by doing this, do you think you need some kind of support? How important is mentoring and a structured development to a woman in today's world? You've also been a mentor in a program. How has been your experience around it?
So 2 points I want to make here. Of course, I think that mentoring is extremely, extremely important. It is important for 2 reasons. The first reason is that women, because there are such few of them, especially in the corporate world or in entrepreneurships or even single women who are developing their own businesses, there are not enough women around them. And I think they feel very lonely. They feel the need to be understood. And I think genuinely only a woman can understand other women. Therefore, the first thing is that if we can have more women mentors who are supporting the sisterhood, who are bringing up the sisterhood, that will be great. The other fact is that it's a fact that 95% of leadership around us is male. And if our male leaders genuinely want a diverse society, genuinely want a diverse organization, they need to become mentors, because only through mentorship can women get out of that lack of self-confidence, which we know that all of them suffer from.
The iLeap program, 80% of our mentors are men, actually. So we are getting all the support. So RK, there are a lot of questions coming in. Why don't you just take it over for the Q&A with Apurva? You're on mute, RK.
All right, now I'm good. Okay, so there's a question from Manisha Apurva. Manisha says, strong women leaders are looked down upon as strong competition and they get ill-talked off. How does one handle this?
So Manisha, you're absolutely right. We know that if a male is tough and decisive and dictatorial, he is seen as a great, strong leader. The moment a woman is tough, she is seen as, I wouldn't like to use the word in a public forum, but we know what she is called. As I said right in the beginning of my talk, these stereotypes will always be there. They will perpetuate repeatedly because that's how the world sees women as necessarily being the nurturer, soft and caring. And the moment she comes out of that behavior, the world cannot deal with that. How can you and I deal with it? I've always believed that as long as women leaders just see themselves as professionals, as leaders without a gender attached to them, as leaders who want to succeed, as leaders who want to do well for their organizations and for all their stakeholders, whichever behavior helps them achieve organizational, entrepreneurship, leadership success, that behavior is good. So I would not get bound or too worried about what the world talks about or the world says, because the moment you start becoming too soft, the same people who are talking about you as being too tough will say that you're too soft. You can't please the world. So just please yourself and please your organizational goals and stakeholders.
Right. Thank you, Apurva. I hope that answers the question. There's a very interesting one from, I believe, a millennial lady, Shalu B, who says, thank you. I'm a consultant. And how do I get people to take me seriously in the first go and not dismiss me as a young woman?
I think at every phase in your life, you will face some people taking you seriously, some people not taking you seriously. When you're looking too young, they will think of you as frivolous. When you're a little older, they will think of you as somebody who's been a has-been. So I think that is the first reality that we must deal with. The second thing, and I often say this to women, is that it's a fact that when we are either making a presentation or meeting an investor or going for an interview, first impressions do matter. And it's just not about our content. It's also about our tone. It's also about how we look, how we dress up. There is nothing wrong with concentrating on power dressing. There is nothing wrong with thinking that, okay, I'm going for this serious interview or for this serious fundraising. Let me dress up accordingly. Let me choose the more power colors. Let my demeanor, my body language also help build the impression that I want to build. It's not only about the content, it's equally about the packaging.
Sure. Thank you, Apurva. And Shalu, my apologies for calling you probably a millennial. I saw the chat and I responded and apologized there as well. One more question I'll pick up from the chat box before we come to our panel of ladies. There's one question and I'm trying to find where it is, but yeah, this is from Suvarna Devrukar, which is, do you really think Men Mentor will always support women leaders? How practical or how practically true would this be?
So it's a fact, whether it is men or women, it's a fact that we like to surround ourselves with people similar to us. Thus, whether consciously or subconsciously, a male leader will prefer to surround himself with other males, not because he's biased, not for any other reason, but because he's more comfortable. Even a woman leader will like to surround herself with other women because that's who she's more comfortable with, because she understands that particular gender. So this bias does exist. Whether it is a male leader, he has to consciously be aware that as the more diversity he has in his team and his organization, the better his organization will do. As long as we are able to link diversity to a business result, male leaders will look for diversity. Therefore, my answer is an organization should help leaders understand these unconscious biases that they are approaching selection from and help navigate those biases. Equally, my answer for a male leader is that be conscious that sometimes subconsciously these biases operate. And my final message to the women who are the selectees, so to speak, is many times we perpetuate the biases ourselves. If 3/4 of women leave after they get married, 3/4 of women leave their jobs once they have children, what is the bias that will operate in a leader's mind? That, you know, a woman, the moment she gets married, she leaves, because that's what he's seeing. The majority of women are doing that. And that's exactly what we should change by our behavior. So if 3/4 of us don't leave our jobs after we get married, if 3/4 of us don't leave our jobs after we get married, we will break these stereotypes.
Thank you, Apurva. I think a brilliant point. If 3/4 of us choose to stay back, we will make a difference. Great point. And on the panel, we have Mridul Banot, who's the Chief Operating Officer, COO of Microsoft here in Delhi. Mridul, may I request you to kindly unmute yourself and ask a question if you would like to ask?
Hi, thanks RK for giving me the opportunity. I'm in the chief of staff role. I just wanted to kind of clarify with others listening in. Great to be on the panel and nice to meet with Apurva. I think everything that you said resonated extremely well with what we should look after. I do have a question, and this is, I think, more from an organization, more for men to hear, I would say. Currently, the organizations, in the spirit of diversity and inclusion, they typically land up setting targets as a metric saying this is the diversity target we should have to hire. And as the organizations follow a metric based approach, what typically happens is the organization and the mentality comes in saying, okay, I need to fill this particular slot and I need to hire a woman because it's a diversity metric and target I have. What then it does is the men start saying, you know what, I need to fill this, so I'm going to compromise with the quality. And how do you kind of address that situation?
Mridul, very, very real problem and real issue that all of us are facing. The fact is that if we don't set ratios, maybe we will never get enough women. We will never be able to push women through the up the ladder. But the moment we have ratios, the point that you raised, that maybe sometimes women will, the leader will end up compromising and selecting a woman, and that ultimately is going to be counterproductive, because if you select a less competent woman, that will impact the team's functioning and women will get a bad day. That point we have to be very cognizant of. So how do we get out of this? I think the first thing is that organizations should get out of putting a diversity ratio. Organizations should spend a lot of time educating the larger system that the more diverse your team is, the better are going to be your business results. So the case for business results using diversity needs to be proven repeatedly. It's not a diversity ratio is not an end in itself. Diversity ratio helps you deliver business results, is a constant messaging with facts that needs to be given. That's point one. The second point is, as far as possible, I think what we should try and do is, when there is a panel selecting people, in the panel itself, we should try to have we should have a diverse panel who's even doing the selection. Then we need to leave it to whichever best candidate gets selected. The more diverse a panel is, you're more likely to pick up a diverse pool. So don't put ratios in the selectees, put a ratio in the selectors.
Thank you. That's very nicely said. There's one more question which has come in. And this is, the question is, what were the hurdles you had to pass through to break the stereotypical image of being the boss? And today, which imagery as a leader you take pride to have, kind of reached where you are?
So I too had to face exactly the same challenges as any woman has had to face. The fact that when my child was young, I went through this whole guilt of leaving him at home. And I still carry the guilt, though he's 27 years old now, I still carry the guilt that I left him when he was 5 years old and went to work. The guilt, the disruption that comes in my career when husband gets transferred. So I went through exactly the same ladder as any woman goes through, the balancing that is required. The only thing that I did was, in my mind, it was never a choice that I should either have a career or a family. It was always, I want to have both. And the moment this battle in my mind was very clear that it's always going to be both, I found it easier to navigate these challenges. So the first message that we need to tell ourselves is not or. It's not either marriage or career. You can have both and you can do well in both. So it's and. I think that's very clear. What I take pride in, I think I take pride in two things. One is that I have never had to make a CV in my entire 32 years of working. All the jobs that I've got have been basis recommendations. And that is the thought that I want to leave with all people here, that it's not about a CV, it's about the reputation you build. CVs can be fudged, CVs can be changed, CVs can be rewritten. A reputation is what you build every day and every week of your life. And that is what gets you the jobs and the enhancements.
There's one more question. Women at leadership positions usually face, sorry, I think it's just kind of gone up. Let me just go back. Women at leadership positions usually face egotistical attitude from men who refuse to take orders from a woman. And then men would group together to only prove that her decisions are wrong and resist more. How does one deal with such an environment around her, even if she's very rational, assertive, and empathetic? How do you navigate through such situations?
So it's going, whether directly or indirectly, this challenge you will always face. I, for example, have 5 CEOs who work with me, out of which 4 CEOs are males who are older than me. And with each one of them, I have to get them aligned to what I want to do, and I want and to make them what I want to do. How do you deal with that? I think you can't control how people around you think. You can only control what is going in your mind. And the message that I keep on giving myself, that when I approach a conversation, it is always as a professional, as a person who understands, who knows. Now, as a leader, it is my job to ensure that the other person either gets aligned to what I have to say, or I teach him how to get aligned. And that's a constant battle. That's a constant, whether it's an aligned reportee or an unaligned reportee, building trust and building alignment is a job that a leader constantly has to do. So what I would do, I would take this equation about gender, that he's male, he's thinking of me as a woman and not, out of the equation, and only say, I'm a professional, he's a professional. My job is to ensure that he gets aligned. And teaching alignment, ensuring consensus is a daily struggle all of us have to go through.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Mridul, for your question and on behalf of the participants. Just before I get Rashmi back in, there's a short little video of the program that we're doing along with the Beyond Diversity. Let me play that for you. Just a couple of minutes, please.
Mentoring has been a very powerful tool for women to take charge of their careers, and we have realized that it has not only helped women to network and connect with each other, but also to connect with industry leaders across various walks of life. The validation came in 2014 when we were felicitated by none other than Hillary Clinton, Vital Voices, and Bank of America in the Global Leadership Award in Mentoring. This was a very big turning point for us, where we believed that mentoring could yet be another game changer for many women in India. I realized that had I had somebody to guide me, to tell me whether the decisions I was making were correct or not, maybe I would have done even better. I just liked the idea of women getting together to help each other. Our vision was to see more and more women in the decision-making levels, in the boardrooms, in the political arena, as well as founders and entrepreneurs in the startup community.
This program actually helps you clear away and get a right understanding of what we as leaders can contribute back to society at large and to us as individuals. Thank you for making me a part of BD Foundation. It is a unique initiative, and I'm very happy to be here.
We envision a world in which all women and girls have equal opportunities. They are nurtured and empowered to reach their fullest potential.
People from diverse walks of life come together and share with each other. Magic happens.
Come join us and be a part of this journey of change.
Great. So let me thank Apurva for a very candid and a very open sharing of our views, and brilliant to see some questions being asked by the participants. And before we move on, may I request Rashmi to formally thank Apurva, and then we move on to the next segment, which is Adventures of Women at Workplace, wherein I will try and play a devil's advocate and try and put across some tough questions. And we will see women leaders who have challenged the male bastion in corporate as well as the world outside, answer it from their own experiences and probably inspire us to be able to manage those situations while at workplace. Rashmi?
Yeah, thank you, Apurva. Thank you so much for spending time as usual, being very candid in sharing your stories and inspiring and motivating us. You've always been our rock, and thank you for being there. And with your blessings and with your support, we're starting iLeap today. So just be with us, and thank you again.
Thank you for calling me, and all the best to all of you. And I wish this program all success.
Thank you, Apurva.
Thank you so much. We do hope that you'll be there to listen to the women. So over to you, RK.
Thank you, Rashmi. This is the second segment, which is Adventures of Women at Work. Once again, we have shamelessly plagiarized the title from Apurva's book, and apologies for that. Who we have today, and may I request the ladies, as I name them, to kindly unmute yourself and share your videos. We have 4 women leaders from the walks of life. The first one is, and in no particular order, is Anjali Singh, who's MD with Deutsche Bank. Anjali?
Hi. So you'd like me to introduce myself?
We'll get to that.
Okay. So hi everyone. I'm Anjali. Okay.
We have Rachel Thomas, and Rachel has a very unique story. She was the first Indian woman skydiver in 1979. 1979 being a year when many of us would not even have been born. And she's been skydiving since then, over 650 dives across 18 countries, has broken more than a few bones. And as she said, she's seen death. Rachel?
Hi, everyone.
Welcome here. We have Jayanthi Anilkumar joining us from Chennai, and a very familiar face to many of us. She is from our own HR fraternity. She's heading HR for Stanchart GBS, Global Business Solutions.
Thank you, RK. Hello, everyone.
Good to have you here, Jayanthi. And last but not the least, Kanika Tekriwal. Kanika is very interestingly an entrepreneur now in the field of timeshare when it comes to luxury aircraft hiring. Extremely difficult and challenging field, and I believe she's actually JetSetGo. So welcome, Kanika, to the panel here.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Right. So the format that we're going to follow is I will play the devil's advocate, and my apologies once again to all the ladies here in the panel as well as in the audience. But I will try and ask some tough questions, and we'll then draw from our experiences. So my opening gambit here, and this is for all 4 of you, and you can go one by one and answer this, is the first title of the book that Apurva wrote was Lady, You Are Not a Man. And lady, you are not a man can mean different things to different people. Right from a condescending put down to a very interesting challenge, or even an exhortation to call or to respond and to rise to the occasion. And I'm sure each one of you would have had defining moments in the lady, you're not a man. What do you have to say to that? Anjali?
Okay, sure. Why don't I start? Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for having me here. So I'm actually going to replay it back all the way to when I just graduated from college and was on the brink of a career, as was my brother. My brother was True Blue. He's an IIT MBA. And my father was actually one of my biggest sponsors, he for Shree. So one of these days, Pandit comes in, he comes into the house and he's trying to tell my father stuff about his kids, and he's telling him that, oh, your son is going to be so successful, and knock on wood he is, that one day, Mr. Verma, you will be known as his father. So my father is one of, the reasons I think that I'm sitting here today, because he brought us up equally, and he was as much he was my first he for she sponsor. So he looked at him and said, Panditji, what about my daughter? I think I'll be known one day as, Anjali Verma's father. So I think both my children will be equally successful and smart. So why do you always have to say that, it's only about my son? And those words it's very strange. It's a small incident in one's life, but those words have just stayed in my head all my life to say, of course, why is it that in this society, in this culture, it's always about being known as the son's father, and the son will carry forward and make me proud? Why not daughters? So, that's been one of the most defining moments of my life, even before my career began. Thanks.
Thank you, Anjali. Rachel?
Hi, thank you for having me in the webinar. Sometimes I feel I was born before time. I was a tomboy all my life. But I would like to say a small little thing which I love, which Dr. Abdul Kalam said, dreams are not what you see in sleep. It is things which you don't let you sleep. I always wanted to fly like from childhood, like one of those eagles in the sky. I wanted to be there in the sky, carefree like them, and just fly around. And this dream got fulfilled, like what you said, okay, 41 years in April 1979. It was really at a party when this lady Chantal, who was married to Captain Shakir Singh, a French lady, said, "It's sad that no women have joined the first skydiving course." And the first thing that I said, "Can I join?" She said, "Be there at 5:30." She didn't think I'll be there, but I was there at the training area at 5:30 in the morning, and there was no turning back. Sometimes I really wonder. I was born in a very small town in Chittaranjan. My parents were very simple people. Where did I get this grit from? Where did I get this, this passion to fly or to skydive? And I was already a mother of two kids. One was 5 and one was 3, and never came to my mind that that I'm leaving those two children and I'm going to skydive. It really, I think we were just 3 women who had joined the course, the first course of 49 guys, 45 people, and out of which one dropped out after 4 jumps, one didn't continue, and I was the only one who continued. But it was a very difficult career path for me. It was very, very difficult because no one understood what skydiving was. It was only in the army. The civilians never knew anything about skydiving. I couldn't find sponsorship. I couldn't, the government sanctions, nothing. So it was a rough road for me, but I never gave up. I just continued, and I put in 23 years in the sport. So I'm very happy of what I've achieved, and I could fulfill my dream.
Thank you, Rachel. And I think pretty exciting skydiving from 15,000 feet or more. Having done that once, and I understand the kind of feeling that one has. Great. Jayanthi, lady, you're not a man?
Absolutely not. And I think, like Anjali said, a lot goes back to your upbringing and raising, Marke. That's my view. Because at no stage in my life, fortunately or unfortunately, I don't have brothers. I have only one sister, but then there has been absolutely no comparison to say, that boy did this, so you should be doing it. The competition is only with yourself. So you are capable of more. So you need to do your best. So I think when that kind of sets in and gets ingrained in your mind, then there is no comparison. There is no competition with another man. It's just you, yourself, and you just continue doing your best. And then sky is the limit.
Sky indeed is the limit, Jayanthi. Kanika, and next time I'm not going to come last to you. I will come first to you. Lady, you're not a man.
Definitely not. Why would I want to be one? Would be the right way for me to put it. But I think there's no need to emulate anybody or be anything that you don't want to be. I personally think it's about being yourself and standing up for what you really believe in.
So what is it, any instance from your life that really, when you face such a put down or such a challenge?
I think lots of times, I won't call them challenges, I'll call them, I call them instances where I learned how to grow up probably. I remember my first sales pitch, we walked into the boardroom of a really, really big business house. And I was the last person to enter the boardroom. And the man we were there to pitch to pointed at me and said, "Ma'am, can you ask everyone if they want coffee or tea, please?" And I was 21, just started my company, dumb and foolish. And I lost all my confidence right there. And I was like, oh my God, what do I tell him? I almost cried. And I somehow managed to gather myself together, went in there and said, "Look, I'm the owner of the business who's here to pitch to you." And his first reaction was, "Aap plane udaoge?" I was like, "No, I run the company that's going to supply the planes to you." He's like, "Pakka, aap real planes udate hain?" I was like, yeah. And, it took a lot to, I think, make the pitch, carry on with the pitch. Today, he's our biggest champion. He's our biggest customer. He's got us a lot of customers. So yeah, lots of incidents like that. But I think it's up to us how we turn them in our favor more than our disfavor.
Great, Kanika, thank you. And now coming to the questions, and I've tried juggling them and allotting them to others. Anjali, like it or not, this first question comes to you again. And there is a statement by Apurva in one of her books: neither morphing into a man nor becoming a damsel in constant distress is the route to success today. What did you choose to become?
So I think neither. I chose to be neither. And Apurva covered it, and I'm going to repeat it. I love the word gender neutral. And I think that's what you've got to be when you're at work and when you're doing your job. It's about delivering results, driving the right behavior, leading your teams, managing your clients. And so it's about being a professional and not trying to be one or the other. Unfortunately, sometimes when you drive results very strongly and are ambitious and driven and very assertive, exactly what Apurva said, a woman gets labeled as bossy, a man is admired for having the very same traits that women sometimes are, not admired for. But I love the word gender neutral because that's who you need to be at work. And I've been lucky to work in companies where I think it was very consciously maintained. So I've been in American Express for 8 years and 14 years at Genpact. Both of those companies were so aware of the unconscious biases that there was a great deal of gender neutrality. And therefore, I actually don't think I ever had to become a damsel in distress or try to be, that muscular, male, chauvinistic woman trying to show that she can be someone else. I could be a woman and I could drive results. So I know it was said about me once and in Hindi, so if I may, Anjali ko patthar do, wo tel nikal degi. So I do carry that reputation, but it was like done, without any one way or the other. I'm here to deliver results and I will.
I think a great point, and I'll remember that. Anjali ko patthar do to tel nikal deti hai. Right, Kanika. So I promised I'll come back earlier to you. What did you choose to become?
I think I've never really. I mean, when you say what did you choose to become, in what context do you mean it?
Either morphing into an alpha man or not becoming a damsel in distress. Those are two extreme positions that women can choose to take, or somewhere in between, right? So what did you choose to become?
I don't think the two extreme positions women can choose to take. And I really beg to differ on that. I think it's up to us how we want to be. So I'm definitely not a damsel in distress. It doesn't happen. But yeah, I am quite aggressive at work, but that doesn't make me an alpha male either. I think what I've chosen to do is find my own place and get people to respect me for who I am and what I do and what I believe in. I often am told that, I'm a very aggressive person to work with, but I think where that stems from is if I raise my voice in the office, I'm aggressive. But if a male colleague raises his voice more, he's not aggressive, but he's assertive. So, it's a play of words. So I don't think I've chosen to become either to answer your question. I've just chosen to be myself and kick ass. Yeah.
Yeah, glad to hear that, you chose to be yourself and kick ass. Right. We're seeing some great streaks coming in through the first question. Let's come to the next one. And this one is for Jayanthi and Kanika again. We do a lot of work with breaking bias and diversity. And in one of the workshops that we conducted, one of the senior woman leaders actually stood up angrily, seethed with anger and said, I am a woman, but I am not a diversity candidate. I am a woman, but I am not a diversity candidate. How dare you? How do you deal with suppositions and insinuations like this at your workplace? Do they happen? And then what do you do about it? And I think a shade of this was spoken by Apurva earlier, but would like to get your views, Jayanthi, especially since you're also from HR.
I think it happens. It happens for sure. It happens in almost every organization, unless you consciously decide as an organization that you will not let that happen. Otherwise, like Apurva rightly said, there is that whole element of unconscious bias, right? You might not want to do it intentionally, But the whole fact that we have such a patriarchal history behind us, we tend to make those unconscious choices many a times. And then this reaction, I have seen it many times myself, and I've seen it when you really have to get that leadership percentage higher. And when you say that a certain role will have to be kept open till you find a lady filling that job, so then there are those undercurrents, right? Undercurrents and those whispers which say, now is that what the parameter is for the job? Being a lady and you get there to that banded position, is that the parameter? So getting those biases out of the system in a lot of organizations, I think, is one of the biggest challenges people like us in HR have. So that's my take.
Sure. Thank you, Jayanthi. Kanika, do you have a take on this? Kanika, you're on mute.
I'm so sorry. This keeps happening with me. So, I think this is, like Jayanthi pointed out, and I'm sure Anjali would agree, this is something that happens at most, workplaces. And it's more, to me, if I have to think about it, I don't know if I'm experienced enough to be commenting on it, but I think it's a lot to do with the social strata we thrive in and the way we're brought up also, right? Some of us are told to emulate men or stand up for not being related to men. Some of us are, so I think it's a lot to do with social environment, and I probably don't have the right answer for it. It'll probably evolve as it goes. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Kanika. Well, Apurva referred to this, and she did mention about when she went the family way, and then coming back, and she did mention that 2/3 of us, or 3/4 of us should get back for it to really become a movement. So guilt and regret are some of the common ailments that plague working women. The constant conflict over allotment of time for work vis-a-vis life, and it's a war of attrition for a woman, because she wants to have a career, she's good at it, and she also wants to be able to pay equal attention to her family, to her children. What has been your silver bullet, and how do you deal with it? Rachel? Your skydiving would have taken you places away from family a lot of times, right?
Sorry. My silver bullet, the take I had was, especially in the early 80s when I'd gone to US for my training, it was very difficult for me to leave my 2 children and go so far away for 3 months. But I was blessed. I had my mother and my sister there at home as my support system. And I would bring them back one suitcase full of goodies. So I was like Santa Claus coming back home. At times they would even forget to come and hug me, but they were so excited to just see what I was getting back for them. And we've got to remember, in the 80s, there was no WhatsApp or no phones or no internet. It was very difficult to keep in touch with them. But at least when I came back, I think that period was wiped off. But while I was at home, I gave my 100% to them. I got them engaged with the sport. I had taken them to a couple of demo jumps where we had gone to other cities to jump. I've taken my kids along, and they would take part in it. Like, they would help me carry something or help me roll a parachute or something. And they saw my passion, and they understood my whole passion about the sport and why I wanted to continue with it. So getting there, as they grew up and they stood with me and they understood me, it was an easier journey for me when I would go off for a competition or I would go off for something I didn't feel so miserable at that time.
Great.
Because
So
I got them involved in it. Thank you.
Great. So you got them involved, you got them to be part of the ecosystem.
Yeah, I think kids are very intelligent, RK. So since they are intelligent and you share with them your passion, or you share with them your hardship, or you share with them something, your work or whatever it is, in small, in something you share with them, and they can see what you're going through. Then they understand you better, and you treat them like an adult, and they feel better.
Sure. Great point, Rachel. Anjali, what has been your silver bullet when it comes to being able to manage the guilt and regret between the two, the work and the family?
So, I also, I've been working all my life. I went back to work when my son was about 6, 7 months. I started half day. I was with American Express then. And I've gone through the usual, guilt, not had enough time. I started traveling a lot when my son was 2 years old. So the first advice I give women is make sure you have a great support system and do whatever it takes to get that, because you're going to be a little more at ease when you know your kid's being looked after. If you can get one of his grandmothers next to him, nothing like it. Next best to you is the other parent or a grandmother. And me and my husband had a rule, one parent in town, because my husband used to travel a lot. But we ensured that our travel schedules were coordinated in a way that one of us was always in town. I was lucky, and we very consciously decided to live in a city where we had grandmother support on both sides. But here's something I want to say to all the working women. You're not going to get the same time with your kids that a homemaker gets. And you will not probably be able to get those 4 hours a day, or, do the homework or do the baking for his school, or all of that stuff. But what you can do is, so your work-life balance, which is a topic debated widely, will never be like what a homemaker and a full-time, mother gets with her children or a family. So instead, pick your moments of truth. And that's become my mantra in my life. So what are my moments of truth? It's my son's tennis matches. It's when every PTM I showed up. It didn't matter where, how, what. If your daughter plays an instrument, just show up. And then no board meeting or no office meeting should keep you. So understand what are those moments of truth. Define them for you. Plan your calendar. My calendar, leaves are taken, son's birthday, husband's birthday, wedding anniversary, and all of this. Because those are moments of truth. Family sickness, hey, I'm just going to be out of office. It doesn't matter. I've defined that as moment of truth in my life when you put your family first, no matter what. And, to Rachel's point, and then help your family or your kids especially understand that I'm maybe not here for all those 4 hours, but I'm surely going to be there when you want me to show up for your tennis match, or when you want me to be there to, hear you in the evening practice for your debate tomorrow morning. So understand what's really important for them and just show up, drop everything else and be there. So I changed my life to moments of truth, and I stopped thinking work-life balance.
I think a brilliant point once again, and kind of clarifies the little fog in my head as well. Because I've always wondered at how difficult will it be? Because for me, it's a little easy, as Apurva said, I'm the entitled man, right? And therefore, it's easy to put one compartment away. But I do understand, and yes, the moment of truth and choosing your moments of truth, I think is very, very important. That brings me to another interesting thought, and this is something which I read in a book called The Twisted Sisterhood. The Twisted Sisterhood. And it says that 90% of women surveyed, and this is US, guys. We in India are far more filial by nature, but in the US, the survey said 90% of women surveyed have felt mean and negative undercurrents from other women. Women are sometimes their own worst enemies. Girls can be mean to girls, but it's the adult women who vie to destroy each other. What import does this statement have? And does it really hold true when it comes to the women in the corporate world and how you deal with that? Jayanthi, would you like to take that?
I think, again, a widely accepted truth, RK, be it the organizations or be it home. I think these are probably a lot of undercurrents which we kind of see every single day. And I think personally, I have experienced it myself, having fortunate that I had very, very few female bosses, but then few of the experiences I personally had with a few of them it really had to be a battle to kind of come out of that. And it becomes worse if your boss, who is a female, is a spinster. If she's a single lady, then that battle can become very, very tough. So I guess for people like us who've kind of traveled a couple of decades, into the career, I think the only thing which I will urge women at this stage of our career is learn from those experiences which you've had and make sure that what you impart to the ladies in your team and your lady colleagues is something which could be very, very different. And that is where, a lot of this mentoring which BD Foundation does comes into picture, right? What does mentoring mean? You're actually helping women tide over things which you could have actually had a very difficult time dealing with. So today there is a framework where experienced women can actually help handhold and take people through those difficult situations. So if you have had a very difficult experience with a female boss, you can choose that. It's a choice which you can make not to be like that. And then impart that to your fellow women colleagues and the people whom you can mentor. I think that's the way I will look at it, RK.
I think a good point, Jayanthi. And yes, for those of us who've been in this journey as a woman who strived hard, made a place for herself, I think it's time for us to look at a payback in a manner wherein we can probably take a couple of young aspirants under our wings, mentor them, guide them through these tough moments, and be able to help them come up. And I'm sure with BD Foundation, there's a lot of work that happens on this, and we look forward to continuing that journey. Kanika, you're in an entrepreneurial space, in an entrepreneurial mode, but I'm sure you would have had some experiences around women not being the best friends. Just remember to take the mute off. Yep.
So, I think I hear a lot about this all the time, and I am yet to personally experience women bringing me down. I've had, I think, almost 45% of our team right now is women. We went on a journey where we said we'll have one woman in every cockpit. We succeeded in that. And I've only in my team seen women bring other women up, women pilots look out for each other, women engineers look out for each other. So, I've not personally witnessed it, or maybe I've not looked closely enough. Unfortunately or fortunately, my best friends are all boys. So I've never had too many girlfriends to be seeing. But yeah, I've seen a lot of instances in bigger organizations maybe, or, I've had friends tell me stories about how there's always this boys club and boys stand up for each other and don't bring each other down, etc. But women don't. So I don't know. I've not personally been a victim or a person who's experienced it, so I wouldn't want to comment on it, I guess. Yeah.
Right, Kanika, and I think heartening to hear you've been able to manage a woman in every cockpit, and yes, India has a very high penetration of women pilots, even when it comes to Air India and other airlines in civilian space. And of course,
so if I may just say something, but India has the highest number of women pilots in the world.
Yes.
Which I don't think is spoken about enough. And it's the second or third highest number of aeronautical engineers also.
Brilliant. That's a fact that I didn't really know. And we could keep complaining that women don't take up STEM, science, technology, engineering, and maths. And aeronautical engineering is one of the toughest ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. Great one. Okay. Now we come back to Rachel and then Jayanthi. Apurva, and I'll keep leaning back to Apurva's books because the books are about a lot of gender truths. Apurva in her book writes, when the going gets tough, the first battle women lose is in their minds. What I would want you to think through and talk about is when you had a meltdown because you faced significant opposition or a situation and you had a meltdown and you were about to give up. And what is it? And what did you do which helped you pick up yourself and continue to proceed on the journey?
RK, for me, it was tough all through because being the only girl in the sport and way in the 80s when women had not come into the forces even. And it was very difficult because the rest of my teams, when we went for a demo, would be from the Army and the Air Force put together. So for them to accept a civilian and that to a girl to skydive with them was very difficult. They would never look at it like as if, she doesn't get to jump. She doesn't have any support system. In the country, there is no skydiving club where she can go and practice. And she is stepping out and taking this risk. Let's help her. Let's, cheer her up. So my first experience was way back, I think when it was my second demos in the early 84, around about 84. I was just new in the sport, and it was at Safdarjung Airport. And we had the FAI jump over there. I mean, the FAI plenary meeting, and people from all over the world had come. It was the Federation Aeronautical International, and the delegates from all over had come. And we had to showcase our aero sports. And I was part of a 10 guy team. And so in the ground, they briefed me and said, you're going to skydive from 6,000 feet and you're second on the stick. I said, okay, done. When we started climbing, then suddenly they changed and they said, no, we're going to, you're going to skydive from 8 and we're going up to 10. I said, all right. So basically they wanted to check my nerve because for them, it was the first time a girl skydiving with them. So they wanted to check me out, and I did it, and I did it perfectly, and they were shocked, and I got a very nice remark on my logbook, which I was very proud of, and it was a great job. But I've gone through that the whole life. Like it took me a lot of effort, even going through the PMO to get sanctions, special sanctions, to get 25 jumps with the Air Force, to skydive about the AN-32. With the troops, both with the troops and with the normal Air Force skydivers, with the Army. So for them also, it was a bit of an ego, but then slowly they accepted me as part of the family. So, but it was tough, and they knew that I'm a hard nut to crack. So they just accepted me as part of but today there are a lot of women skydivers in the forces. There are a lot of youngsters in India who've joined and wanting to skydive. There's skydiving clubs that have come up. In India, people won't have, in the next few years, I think people will not have to go to Dubai or Sri Lanka, to the neighboring countries to do a skydive. They will do it right here. So it is growing in our country.
Great, good to hear that. And yes, training with para commandos when the women were not even there in the armed forces would have been quite experience. And even from the para commandos point of view, despite however nice they would have wanted to be, they would not have been used to having a woman amidst them in a training scenario. So I'm sure that would have been be stuff of some stories that one would love to connect with you and hear from you.
Thank you, RK.
Pleasure. Let me take this question to Jayanthi also. So when the going gets tough, the first battle a woman loses is one in their minds. Your meltdown, and how did you pick yourself up?
I think it's taking me back all the way about 18 years to the time I joined the bank, RK. And the second day of my joining, I had to travel, and all the way to Indonesia. So the first ever time I was traveling out of the country. And that was a time when we were essentially bringing a lot of activities from across the globe to centralize in the hub in Chennai. And you can imagine, right? So the job is really going and taking somebody's job away. So the kind of hostility which was waiting to welcome you in a country you had no clue of was an absolute shocker. That was not something I had really expected when I joined an organization as big as this. And when you go there and you kind of experience the hostility in almost everyone you meet. And today when I look back, I kind of understand why they behave the way they behave, because they knew at some point of time they will lose their jobs. So now I understand, but at that stage, when you were much, much younger, it was a big, big shocker. And then the decision really was, are you going to roll up your sleeves and fight that battle? Not let anyone defeat you, meaning you will have to accept defeat yourself before packing your bags and leaving that country. But being alone, you don't have the family support which you normally have. You're all alone there. All you have is a bunch of colleagues who you're seeing for the very first time. And then you have a set of stakeholders who are absolutely hostile. So it was an absolute meltdown moment, but it was a decision, it was a choice that you're going to fight it. You're going to fight it with all the grit you have. And then if I had not fought that battle, then RK, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. It's as simple as that.
Completely agree. And it's interesting, and it's also exciting when as a youngster who's just starting out, and especially as you mentioned, second day, and then to travel and on an assignment which has this kind of an overtone, and as you mentioned, people would have been losing the jobs, with some jobs migrating, and you're responsible to bring it back, and that can get really, really intimidating. And in the interest of time, I would open up this last question to anybody who wants to take it, any two of you who wants to take that. The question is, we've always heard behind every successful man, there is a woman. Cliched, but we keep hearing that. And by its natural corollary, is there a man behind every successful woman? Or does a woman need to find her own cheerleaders? Anjali, I think you want to take this one.
I will. I'll say a few words. I don't think that it's necessary for a woman to have a man to succeed. But I do think, when you get married or when you have a significant other, and if that's a man or, whoever that may be, that person needs to be part of your support system to help you succeed. So like I said earlier, when I think of my he for she champions, it starts with my father and the way he brought me up and the things he said and how he inspired me to be the best I can be and say, no, I don't want to be known as, my son's father. I want to be known as my daughter's father because she can be as good. My husband's been very supportive in the journey too. And small things, you're getting a great job in another city. So, but we've got that one parent in town rule. So I won't take it because my wife's career is equally important. And so I've made some, decisions for him, but he's made some decisions for me. And that kind of support. And the last is my son. I have a son who's now 22 years old. I think he supported me. So as a child, there was moments when, why do you have to be at work? Why are you traveling? But, as they grow older, like Rachel said, they understand more. You make them part of the journey and then they become your support system too. So I have, a husband and son. I don't have daughters, but I'm sure if I had daughters, then I try to make them also part of my support system. Whoever is in your ecosystem has to be part of your support system to help you succeed. Man, woman, parent, I don't know. I'm not going to give it a gender bias. I'm going to say whoever is there in your life, do become pillars to help you succeed.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, can I also just...
Yes, of course, Rachel, please.
I went through a broken marriage in '84. So for me, skydiving was my cheerleader. So, it just doesn't have to be always that you have a husband or you have, yes, my children were very supportive. My mother and my sister was very supportive. I had other family members, but I didn't have a man in my life to be supportive. But if you are passionate about something and you're determined about achieving something, then you can put away all your sorrows, you can put away all your problems, and you're so focused, your drive is so great in that to achieve something that you really you go and you can break it. For example, I got 2 international events which is unheard of, and I wonder if it ever will get done. I got International Parachuting Commission that was done in India with 150 delegates from 35 countries, and I put skydiving on the world map. So I mean, it's something that I don't know when we will be able to do it again. I had the veterans coming from all over. That also after 9/11, I had a jump for people who came from all over the world who are veterans, Marine veterans, and Army veterans. They are people who collect jumps. Now, can you imagine the amount of red tapeism I had to go through to get all these people who were to jump from our service aircraft? But because I love to take challenges, I managed to overcome all my other problems and live with it. So like what Anjali said is she had the other things, but there are a lot of women out there who are single mothers. There are a lot of women out there who have other problems. So if they can focus, they can put their whole focus on other, their career or what they want, their passion. They can break through all the other problems and lift their head high and walk.
Great. I could hear the emotions in your voice. But thank you for sharing that. Jayanthi, would you also want to take this up?
RK, yes, and I would tend to agree with what I've heard. Apart from the men in your life, your father for sure, your husband, I think children, they play an important role in being cheerleaders. And that's probably the best you get back after years of being juggling with all these balls in your hand. When they today look at you and when you kind of see the pride in their eyes, I think they become the biggest cheerleaders. And for a moment, I don't forget your colleagues, the people you work with day in, day out, you can have such a good bunch of cheerleaders in them. So then it kind of becomes a complete balance, right? So you're not looking for cheerleaders in one pocket of your life, you kind of have them everywhere. And that, I think, gives such a holistic feeling, RK. And that's the way I have kind of lived all these years.
Thank you, Jayanthi, and thank you. At least I was wondering, when will men get acknowledged? I think there's a signal for us men to also rise up to the occasion and perhaps do our bit to support the women around us and do well in their careers. Kanika, we will end it with you as well.
Hello? Good.
Yes, I can hear you. We all can. Okay, I think she got dropped out. So while she comes back in, we'll take some questions from the participants. And I was going through the questions that have come up from the participants. I must admit that for most of it, it is largely adulation and respect that is coming through for the 4 women that we had here. And most of them are kind of acknowledging, accepting, kind of reaffirming what has been said here on this panel. So unless until somebody else sees another question, I think we are pretty much done with this. So I'll just wait for 10 seconds for somebody who would want to ask a question.
Okay, there was one question I saw in the chat box earlier, and it kind of echoes a lot with a lot of thoughts that were shared. I'll just read it out. How would you suggest we handle being labeled as difficult or troublemaker at the workplace for simply speaking up for ourselves or demanding equal opportunities? Any one of you ladies would like to take this? Anjali, Rachel, anyone, please.
So I can take it on for, not been called a troublemaker in my career, but I have been, called someone who's fairly assertive or, aggressive in how I drive results. And I gave you a quote of what was said about me earlier. I would say that whenever you hear stuff like this, if it's just backbiting, ignore it to whatever degree that you can. Otherwise, have a very honest conversation and call it out. If it's your boss talking about you like this, if it's HR making these comments, please ask them to present data. So can you tell me, I heard you call me troublesome. Can you tell me, what is it that, makes me troublesome? I want to be able to take feedback and help myself. And maybe if you cite the examples where I've been troublesome, I will understand this better. And if it's just nonsense they're talking, they will be so flummoxed actually, because then when they give you those examples, those are very flimsy, stupid examples. Right. Unless you've genuinely been troublesome and you've been just, making noise for no reason. And that's the best way. Call it out. If you know who said it, go to that person, address it and say, I believe you say this about me. I really want to understand, where do you think I'm being troublesome? And work with data, work with facts. Try to keep your emotion out of it. If you have an emotional conversation, they'll just again bracket you as, oh my God, women, and they come and they're so difficult to deal with. She was crying in my office over this. So then you veer to the other damsel in distress. So don't become damsel in distress. Address it head on, but address it, with data and address it very pragmatically. That would be my advice.
Right. Thanks for that, Anjali.
Ashish, would you like to ask a question? Ashish, you're on mute.
Yeah. No, I think going on well. We already covered most of the point, and considering a lot of comments coming, as you said, it's most of the comments input related to the respect, and I think they are sharing very, very. I mean, they are giving a lot of insight on how something should be handled. Maybe perhaps I'd like to ask one question to each one of the panelists: how much it is important to have a mentor or coach in the entire journey of the woman? If yes, so which kind of mentor coach would you like to suggest? Obviously, we are also talking about this mentorship program, so you can relate, you cannot relate, that's optional. But do you think, mentor is a one-on-one basis or some kind of program one has to go through, or something else, what's your personal experience?
Ashish, I could probably take that question because the mentorship and mentoring is very, very close to my heart. And one of the reasons for that could be, Ashish, that I've had mentors all my life. Unfortunately, not structured programs, because probably we come from a time when many of these programs didn't exist, but then have always had mentors at work. And that has kind of completely changed the trajectory of my career. And that's precisely the reason why, like RK, you said, it's payback period for me now. So if you have got that through your career, so to me, it is extremely important that I start paying back. And that's what I've been doing for the last so many years. And to me, I think mentorship can change one's career. Absolutely. And it's not a one-time exercise to me. It's a continuous journey. And you can, of course, choose mentors, of course, through your life, but then it's a continuous journey.
Sure. Anybody else? Anjali, you want to take this?
No, I'm just going to say I agree with Jayanthi. I think mentors are very important. A lot of us have had them informally. Whenever there's a big decision in your life, in your career, there are 2 or 3 people that you tend to call. Those are your mentors. And so those are the natural mentors, or just mentors that we kind of find in our life. And they're usually people who worked with you, who understand you and your professional skills and your ambition. But the whole programs now that are running in mentoring, I think are very, very powerful and very important. And young women today coming into careers are very lucky that they're able to participate in this, which maybe me and Jayanthi and Rachel haven't had in the start of our careers. So I think it's a great program and a must do. And the next level has to become sponsorship then. So you mentor and then you sponsor.
Thank you. May I now request Shilpi from Beyond Diversity Foundation to share her thoughts and the way forward for this entire initiative, LEAP.
Thank you, RK, and it's been extremely interesting to have listened to this amazing panel of women leaders. I have listened to them quite many times, and every time I listen to them, I think there's a new energy and new insights which are there. So ladies out there, every time you get an opportunity, make sure you listen to all the women leaders available out there. So quickly, what I'll do now is towards the end of the webinar, I'll let you know about what this mentoring program is that everybody's been talking about, which is iLeap. It's been very close to my heart as well. And, you know, Leap, which was the mother of iLeap, was born 8 years ago. And now we have the offshoot iLeap is a 4-month mentoring program, which is being conducted across virtual platforms. So 8 years ago, when we started Leap, you know, we've had amazing set of mentees and mentors over these years, and there's a very strong cohort of mentees that are there who have really progressed very well in their career. We also have an impact report which is available, and I would recommend all of you to go on our website beyonddiversity.com and access to this impact report as to whatever Jayanthi, Anjali, and all the panel speakers have been talking about, how they navigated the career, how the mentors have helped them in the career, and how they have been able to do some major transitions in their life with the support of the mentoring which was available. So go and have a look at that impact report, and it will give you a lot of idea what a structured mentoring program can also do to your career. Coming back to iLeap, it's a 4-month program, and it's a mix of various learning modules, including coaching, one-on-one mentoring. There will be virtual classroom programs, and I know different topics are being covered, topics which are very, very valid in today's time, in the changing time, especially post-COVID, more of self-reflection, self-awareness. How do you lead with agility? How are you creative in your career, in your career navigation as well? What does creative leadership mean? How do you develop a digital mindset, which is very, very, very important. It is something which a lot of us kind of, take it a little lightly, but it has become very, very important. So developing that digital mindset. So there'll be a lot of these learning modules which will be there. And the participants, coaches, and mentors, the beautiful thing is that they're from across the globe. So truly speaking, I believe that this is the first global mentoring program for women, which is being launched from India. So it's really a very, very proud moment for all of us to be launching it on 15th August, Independence Day. So my thing to all of you is, go ahead. We'll be sending you a mail post this program, which will have details about the program. There'll be an interest form which will be there. So if you really want to know more about the program, or your organizations want to participate in the program, go and fill the interest form, and we'll revert with the details which are required out there. In terms of the cohort of mentors as well, we have a 200 plus cohort of mentors, again from across the globe, and they have partnered with us through these years. There have been some old-time mentors, there's some new mentors who've joined, and it's an amazing, strong cohort. So both the mentor cohort and the mentee cohort is very, very strong. So apart from all the modules and the sessions that we're talking about, what has been beautiful about this journey is the support which comes from the alumni. And I was hearing about, women supporting women or women not supporting women. I think in our journey, we have seen that this cohort is something which has supported each other so amazingly well, whether it is networking, whether it is some skill development, whether it's just being there when someone needed to be there to listen to us. So it's a very, very critical and important cohort which has got created. So you will also get access to this cohort, and you will become a part of this cohort as well. So yeah, that's there from my side. So of course, we'll be having some webinars. Again, some global leaders will be coming to speak in these webinars. All the topics would be very, very, real time happening. Whatever you facing in your work life, whatever you facing in your personal life, all the topics would be revolving around that. So a lot of questions that we have in mind, and I've been reading a lot of questions in the chat box through the program of these 4 months and beyond that. The beautiful part of the mentoring is it never stops in 4 months. Anjali just said that, if there is, even now, if there's a challenge or a complex problem, she reaches out to her mentor. So I think that's the most beautiful part of mentoring is your mentor never leaves you. If you are connected with your mentors never leave you. So we've all experienced that in our lives. So with that, I will hand it over to RK once again. So make sure that you go through the details which we sent to you. And if you're interested, just fill the interest form, and we'll revert to you.
Sure. Thank you, Shilpi. Before we actually close, last video that we have saved for you is from one of our partners again, Lean In. And Lean In is a global firm which does quite a lot of work when it comes to women and women leadership. And I'm sure this little clip will be quite inspiring. Allow me to share, please.
I'm going to try to say this without getting really emotional, but I'm not really sure what my life would look like if it were not for Shonda Rhimes.
It's hard to describe the impact that Mia Hamm has had on my career and life.
Sophia Coppola, Kim Hume, Nina Lederman, Jenny Connor,
Venus.
She has so much power, but she wields it so compassionately and responsibly. She supported my work, and she made me believe that I could do more. I was outside of my comfort zone, but I had the safety net of her support. The women I work with are everything.
One of the most heartening parts of this past year for me has been the outpouring of support I've received from women.
The idea that another woman was in some way taking what belonged to you, that whole idea is kind of shifting. Together, we can get to equality. Together, we can raise our voices.
Together, we can stand up to anything and anyone.
Together, we can make the workplace a better place. Together, we are funnier, smarter, more ambitious, braver, badass,
bolder,
invincible,
unstoppable.
When women lean in together, we accomplish amazing things. Let's lean in. Let's lean in. Let's lean in. Together.
We are all on the same team.
Learn how you can support other women today at leanin.org/together.
Great. Pretty inspiring video out there. I'm very honored and happy at this point in time that we have with us one of the leading lights of HR in the country, and somebody who's been a champion of diversity and inclusion, Akhil. And let me see if I can get Akhil into the panel. Yes, I found him. Akhil will be here in a couple of minutes. It'll be great to hear from him a couple of lines in terms of how he views the entire women's mentoring and the developmental initiatives. Akhil sir, are you here in the panel?
Yes, I am, RK.
Good evening.
First of all, congratulations to all the 4 panelists. Candor and authenticity. It was really worth listening to them and learning the perspective. I like one comment Anjali made about gender neutrality. I think it all goes back to how we look at the world around us, and that's a very important comment. So if I were to go back to my early school days, I studied in a co-education, and I remember one colleague of one classmate of mine called Nisreen, and she was one of those tomboyish girl type, and she used to bug me in no end, take away my lunchbox, and after a point had been reached, I wouldn't hesitate to pull a pigtail. She was not a girl to me; she was a classmate. And I think that attitude, if we bring to work, that colleagues are just colleagues, they happen to be women or men, I think that holds in good stead. Thank you, RK, for giving me this opportunity. Ashish, Manu, thank you, sir.
Sorry, sir. Sorry for having to step in, but 6:45 was a hard close for all of us. And Anjali had to leave, and she unfortunately left. But without much further ado, let me ask Manu to come and thank panelists, including Dr. Akhil and all the others who have kind of put this thing together. Manu?
Thank you, RK. And thank you, Akhil, sir, for joining us. I remember starting my career under a lady leader and a mentor. And I think the first 5 years of my career was there. Of course, one of my best friends still. And I really wish, we had a lot more guys joining this session today. I think the kind of learnings we had from the panelists, and Apurva earlier were phenomenal, right? I would extend, probably want to extend, further sessions around diversity and inclusion more to guys. I think they also need to, when I say they, I mean us, also need to, learn some of these, wonderful stories and learnings from there. But thank you so much to our panelists, Rachel, Kanika, Jayanthi. Anjali is not with us now. And thank you all of you for taking time out on a national holiday or on a weekend. So, and I'm sure families must be looking forward to spending more time with us. It was great hearing you some very practical advice. Some very, very strong, balancing perspectives, on leadership today. It was great to, hear from you. We hope to stay in touch. Have a great weekend. And thank you all for the participants as well to join us on a Saturday evening to hear our very learned panelists. And thank you again, Akhil, sir, for joining us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for good program.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you all the participants.
Thank you.
Happy Independence Day once again, and Jai Hind.